So thank you for joining the culture here today by clicking on this video. Today we're going to be talking about the bench press and some things that I like to look at or address whenever we get a new lifter or client here at either the Melbourne Strength Culture Gym here in Melbourne or an online lifter through the online coaching stream. So today we're just going to be discussing some little tweaks or technique adjustments that quite often I make with new lifters that come under my sort of umbrella of coaching, and something that you might be able to take away from in order to take your bench press technique or your bench press just performance to the next level. I think when we discuss the bench press, it's very, very important, like any lift, but the bench press more so than ever, that you discuss your setup. The bench press is a very unnatural movement, and I hate the word functional, but unfortunately it does apply here. The bench press is a very unfunctional movement. It doesn't really have any application anywhere in life, so it's not a very normal or easy movement for a lot of people to sort of pick up off the bat. Like a deadlift, you can sort of just set yourself up and pick the bar up. A squat, pretty simple. You put the bar on the back and you just squat with it, and your body sort of works out its way how to get down and through the movement. With a bench press, it's very unnatural because you've got your scaps retracted and squeezed back, and you're trying to maintain that position whilst you're pressing the bar off your chest. So you're trying not to let your shoulders move forward and move through protraction and upward rotation. We know that when a scapula moves, when a humerus moves, so the arm moves, the scapula likes to deliver that bone through space. So the scapula likes to move and congruently sort of articulate with the humerus in whichever direction it likes to go, whether that be protraction if you're reaching forward or upward rotation as you're going through elevation of the arm. The scapula likes to deliver the humerus. However, in a bench press, you're pinning your scapula back and down into depression and posterior tilt in order to support the shoulder as you go through that full range of motion of the bench. So it's a very unnatural movement. So that's probably the first thing that we look at with new lifters, is actually teaching them and giving them the motor control necessary to be able to maintain and hold that same position through the whole movement and not slipping forward into protraction and that sort of anterior tilt of the scap as they move through the movement. So that will be number one, some teaching and some cueing and some motor control and proprioception drills to improve their ability to retract and maintain that retraction throughout the full range of motion. I think secondary to that idea is the arch. The bench press arch can sometimes cop a bit of flack because it looks like you're cheating and you're trying to reduce the range of motion. JP Kauke and myself did a video on the bench press arch last week, so I'd recommend going back and having a look at that. And how if you arch incorrectly, you might actually be hindering your performance on the bench press. A lot of people complain about lower back tightness and pain whilst arching in the bench press. And normally that's because they are not actually arching or gaining their global extension from the correct areas in their body. When we think about global extension for an arch, unless you're somebody who can like attain that sort of gymnastics arch, someone like an Eddie Berglund of Sweden, a JP Kauke from Australia even, and some of those smaller weight class lifters, your extension for your arch, you should be driving that extension through hip extension, so through the glutes, actually extending the hip and using your quads to lock that position in, and thoracic extension or upper trunk extension, so extension of the rib cage and opening the rib cage and extending that upper back as opposed to the lower back extension. So this is sort of the second thing that we like to address with new lifters here when we're discussing bench press. Once we've taught them about retraction and maintaining that retraction, it's about setting the best possible position for their arch. An arch is something that we want to progressively increase over time. So as a lifter becomes more experienced with the bench press and their experience with maintaining their retraction improves, the arch should actually build along that progressive timeline. Just like any other technique improvements, the arch will improve your technique. Not only does it reduce the range of motion, obviously because your chest is coming up towards the bar, but it also helps protect the shoulders because the shoulders now move through a lesser degree in terms of range of motion. The range of motion is reduced for the shoulders, so less stress is put through the shoulders themselves. Pretty straightforward trade-off there. So the final two things that we look at here at Melbourne Strength Culture when we're discussing and addressing technique fixes for the bench press is the touch point on the chest for the actual bench press, and also the bar path through the concentric or through that up phase. The touch point is very important, however, it's quite universal for a majority, I'd say 99% of lifters, 99.9% of lifters. The touch point should just be the highest point of your arch. So wherever that is, so wherever you have the highest point in terms of your rib cage and stomach, that should be where you're aiming to try and touch the bar. For a majority of lifters, it's going to be around that xiphoid process, which is pretty much just where the rectus abdominis attaches into the rib cage. So anywhere in that sort of upper abdominal region, that's most likely going to be the golden area or the sweet spot for your touch point. Again, this is pretty much just going to be the highest point of your arch. What does come into consideration with a touch point and small adjustments of that touch point is where somebody's elbows are in relation to the bar at the bottom of their touch or the bottom of their movement. Obviously, the width of their grip will alter whether or not the elbows are in front of the bar, below the bar, or behind the bar, and that's something you can play around with. What you're looking for though is when you're in that touch point is that your elbow is either directly underneath the bar or ever so slightly in front of the bar. And that becomes a very important point when we start to talk about the concentric or the up phase of that bench press. When you push back up on a bench press, your idea is to drive the bar backwards towards the rack. Greg Nuckols does a very, very good topic or discussion, a thread, an article on this idea of pushing back towards the rack, which I'll link in the description. I'll probably put a little bing thing here, bing, about the article. I'd recommend going to read that. However, as you come out of that touch point, your idea should be to push back towards the rack in order to reduce the amount of shoulder flexion or the shoulder flexion moment arm, so the amount of work that your front delt has to do compared to your chest. This can get very technical and it's probably a topic for another video. However, all you have to understand is that in order for you to get the most out of your bench press, when you come off your chest, your idea should be to push back towards the rack and flare your elbows open in order to open yourself up and to put pressure on and put tension onto your pecs. So these are some of the key points that we look at for a bench press technique. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. We're nearly at 500 subs, so if you could share this video if we've managed to help you out, comment, like, subscribe, all those good things, that will help our channel out a lot. As always, happy lifting, welcome to the culture, and we'll see you next time.